climate crisis is no longer a distant threat. It is a reality unfolding right before our eyes. From the wildfires ravaging California to the melting glaciers in the Arctic, the consequences of human activity on our planet are much more apparent than ever before. Yet, despite the overwhelming evidence, the solutions we need to remain elusive. Today, I want to talk about the severity of the climate crisis, its real-world impacts, and why it's essential that we act now. The story of the climate change is one of collective neglect, and its story we have been telling for centuries. It begins with the Industrial Revolution when we started burning fossils on a massive scale. That was the tipping point, the point at which carbon emissions began to skyrocket and the natural balance of our planet began to shift. Since then, we've continued down a path of unchecked industrial growth, exploiting natural resources without regard for long-term consequences. Fast forward to today, we are witnessing the devastating result. Unpredictable heat waves, more frequent and intensive hurricanes, droughts that parch the land, and fires that rage uncontrollably. But this isn't just about statistics and abstract threats. It's about real people and real places. It's about entire communities whose homes and livelihoods are at risk. It's about future generations who will inherit a world that can be unrecognizable by 2050 unless we take decisive action now. Let's begin with the wildfires that have been sweeping across California in recent years. The fire season, which used to just be a few months long, has expanded to almost year-round. In 2020 alone, over 4 million acres burned in California, making it the largest wildfire season in the state's history. These fires have destroyed homes, forced thousands of people to evacuate, and have led to the loss of lives. And it's not just a local problem. Air quality has worsened across the West Coast, with smoke reaching cities as far as New York. Next, consider the Arctic. The region is warming at least twice as fast as global average, a phenomenon known as Arctic amplification, according to NASA. The Arctic sea ice has shrunk by more than 40% since 1979. This melting ice is endangering unique ecosystems and wildlife, such as polar bears, whose habitats are disappearing beneath the waves. The rapid change in the Arctic is an alarming bell that is ringing across the globe, a stark reminder that the effects of climate change are already being felt in most fragile corners of our planet. Lastly, let's look at global agriculture. The United Nations report that climate change has caused severe disruptions in our food production crops around the world, particularly in regions already vulnerable to extreme weather conditions. In Africa, prolonged droughts are decimating crops, while heavy rainfall and floods are making farming impossible in other areas. According to a study by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, global crops yields could decline by up to 30% by 2050 due to climate change. This will not only result in food insecurity for millions of people, but will also cause a ripple effect on global trade and economic stability. The scale of the crisis is alarming. According to the World Meteorological Organization, global temperatures have already risen by 1.2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. While this might seem small and like a very little, it is enough to trigger a world-spread disruptions. If we don't limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, as outlined in the Paris Agreement, we risk catastrophic impacts on ecosystems, economies, and human health. The latest data from the United Nations Environmental Program reveals that if we continue at our rate, we are on track to exceed 3% degrees Celsius of warming by the end of the century, which would make much of the Earth's inhabitable. But these aren't just opinions of climate activists or environmentalists. Experts across the globe are more invested about the urgency of the situation. Dr. Jane Goodall, a world-renowned primatologist and environmental activist, has said, "What are we doing to the planet is not an environmental issue. It is a social issue, a health issue, a moral issue, and a humanitarian issue." Her work with endangered species, particularly Africa, has shown her firsthand how climate change disrupts ecosystems and displaces the communities. Her testimony reinforces that the climate crisis touches every aspect of life on Earth. Another expert, Dr. Michael Mann, a climate scientist at Penn State University, has warned. We are at crossroads. We still have time to act, but the window of opportunity is slim and closing rapidly. Dr. Mann's pioneering work in climate modeling has made it clear that unless we rapidly reduce greenhouse gas emissions, we will reach tipping points that will make it impossible to reverse the damage. His message is one of urgency. If we fail to act, future generations will bear the brunt of our inaction. The climate crisis is not far off a problem that we can just ignore or delay. It is here, it is happening now, and its effects are already being felt across the globe. From wildfires in California to melting ice in the Arctic and global disruption of agriculture, climate change is touching every corner of our planet. We have the scientists' knowledge and the tools to adjust the crisis, but this time is running out. As Dr. Michael Mann said, the window of opportunity is closing. Now is the time for bold action, for government, corporations, and individuals to come together and demand change necessary to safeguard the future of our planet. The choice is ours. Thank you.